all that sewage and all that septic leachate in the Hudson River, the St. Lawrence River, the Great Lakes, the Mohawk River, the Bay of Fundy. Canada dumps huge amounts of sewage into the St. Lawrence and the Bay of Fundy. And Lake George, let's not forget old Lake George. It's got all the businesses up in the Adirondacks all shut down because of the, COVID virus. The COVID-19 virus has got everything shut down, and oh my God, everybody's losing their businesses. Well, I want to take you back to when my mother and father got wiped out from the flushing of Lake George, from the old up and down ice sheet. See, they do it in the wintertime, right? David Wick of Lake George Park Commission, they do the wintertime lake flushing. It's not drawdown, David Wick. You're a lying sack of turds. The Lake George Park Commission, Department of Environmental Conservation, the Post-Star, the Albany Times-Union, the Troy Record, the Lake George Mirror, all the Adirondack Almanacs and Adirondack Wilderness magazines, they all are full of crap. It's not a wintertime drawdown. They're flushing the lake. It's called diluting the pollution, you lying sacks of shit. That goes to the publishers and the editors of the Post-Star, who are nothing more than brainwashing, what do they call that there, mind controllers. Mind controlling at the Post-Star. They don't want to talk about the sewage dumped all over the state of New York by Andy Cuomo and Letitia James, the Attorney General, and the Department of Environmental Confiscation, along with all those so-called Adirondack 46ers and all these environmental groups that are nothing more than a bunch of phonies, absolute frauds. They're fake tree huggers, imagine that. There's more sewage dumped all over New York than anywhere else in the United States, apparently. And they got the highest COVID-19 infection and spread rates, and the death numbers are the highest in the country because of their sewage slopping practices and the way they flushed Lake George. Old Lake George is flushed. It's not drawdown. Maybe somebody can explain the difference between diluting the pollution with a drawdown and flushing the toilet. You want to give it a shot, David Wick? Maybe the supervisors of Warren County, New York, and the town of Queensbury, and Essex County, and Ticonderoga, New York, and Washington County, and Bolton Landing. Maybe Bolton Landing's government can explain the difference between a drawdown and flushing the toilet on Lake George. So yeah, this video goes out to all the people that remember my mother and father getting wiped out year after year after year after year after year because of the flushing of Lake George. And then a closing note here to Judge Boyle, Terrence W. Boyle in Raleigh, North Carolina, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in Charlotte, Virginia, and the United States Supreme Court. They're flushing and dumping sewage all over the place, just exactly like I told y'all. Threatening the health, the safety, and the economy, just exactly like I described it to all of you. Now let's discuss the Outer Banks and how the Outer Banks are all shut down because of the COVID virus. What do you think all that sewage being slopped all over New York State and up and down the Intercoastal does, Judge Terrence W. Boyle? And all the people that think somehow I'm mistaken, why don't you explain to the world how sewage carries viruses? Sewage carries viruses. I'm sorry. The Lake George Land Commission and the Fund for Lake George and the Lake George Association needs to explain to the world how all that sewage leachate that's flushed by Dave Wick and the Park Commission every year, they're flushing Lake George. How is it that all that sewage leachate does not carry viruses? You can put your answer down below, David Wick. I'd love to see it. But in any event, to the Supreme Court of the United States, y'all are full of shit, just like the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals and this Judge Terrence W. Boyle in Raleigh. Why don't you explain to the whole world, Judge Boyle, how sewage spreads viruses? Maybe Donald Trump want to chime in here with Mike Pence, William Barr, and the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray. Sewage spreads viruses. Ladies and gentlemen, all the information and links you need are below. And as always, hasta la vista, God bless, and you betcha, we're coming back.